Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Niner Family Huddle podcast. This week, we're talking Cardinals, Pro Bowl, draft picks, fun stuff like that. We're not talking playoffs, sadly. After this.
It's such a wholesome picture, like the last picture
Yeah.
it has. It's so wholesome. It starts us off right. I want to know when the next Niner game's going to be.
We got to do it next year. I feel like it's been too long of a layoff.
Niner Family Huddle needs to get out there.
Yeah, we'll try to get some press passes.
That'd be awesome.
That would be so awesome.
I think we got a long way to go before we can even consider that, but
yes,
that would be cool to tailgate and have some friends, family, record it, make a little tailgate video. That'd be fun.
that would.
Oh yeah, we got to get some content out of it for sure.
Well, let's start right here for the Cardinal game coming up. I got the injury report. A couple surprises, not really. One that stood out to me was Deebo Samuel got ruled out.
Interesting.
Obviously, Brock Purdy's out. Diamador Lenore is out. Spencer Burford, Robert Beal out. I thought the Deebo one was interesting because we see this a lot with quarterbacks. Like, remember Russell Wilson in Denver? And we just saw it with Daniel Jones. Like, they've got all this guaranteed money. They don't want the player to get hurt because they're planning on moving on, so they bench him. And I wonder if that's what's going on with Deebo. Just pure speculation, because someone asked Kyle today, and he said Deebo was sore after the game, and he didn't quite recover as well as they'd hoped, so he's just out.
It sounds
that was
suspicious.
Someone also asked Kyle, like, if this was like a must-win game, you know, under different circumstances, would some of these guys play like Deebo? And he was like, yeah. So something tells me he's probably okay, but they're like, why don't you go ahead and sit this one out, Deebo? We don't need any injury guarantees that are rolling over into next year. I wonder if they're making this move because they're planning on moving on.
I'd say so. Steven, you want to go first?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, it's hard to know for sure, but that's probably a good thought, or at least like you're probably onto something. How about that?
Yeah,
because I feel like there was no obvious injury or whatever. I mean, I guess he could have been dealing with something that we haven't known about for a while or whatever, but I think you're probably right that they're just like, look, there's no reason to risk him. We're not sure if he's going to be back. And like you said, pump up the trade value, right? Well, he, has a lot less value if he's hurt. So
yeah, at this point, they're probably like, there's not much we can do to increase his trade value, so let's just not crater it by having him get hurt or something. Shanahan also obviously announced earlier the week that Josh Dobbs is going to be starting this weekend. He also acknowledged that he's well aware of Jawan getting close to 1,000 yards, and they're going to try to get him there. What do you guys want to see in this game? Because obviously it's tough. Like, if the Niners, actually, I got the, let me pull this up too. I got the draft rankings. So if they win, they will fall to 14 because they have like strength of schedule tiebreakers with Indianapolis, Dallas, and Arizona. And they would have the same record, obviously. So they would fall all the way to 14. If they lose, they lock in the 11th pick. So why don't we start there? Do you guys, I know it's really hard to root against your team, or do you just root for the team, and if they lose, you kind of give a subtle little fist pump? But where are you guys at with that?
I would love it to be like last week, where it's like a fun game, a competitive game, and they choked it at the end just perfectly. Which hurts to say, but I mean, they did such a great job last week. Yeah, I want that 11th pick. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I know it's funky as a fan to root for them to lose, but I do hope they lose. just because I want that little bit higher draft pick. Arizona. Okay, so we would drop all the way to the 14 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say I'm low key rooting for us to lose, but once like I'm watching the game and kind of get that anxiety spiking, adrenaline spiking, like I'm gonna be rooting and jumping up and down when Juwan has a big catch. So I do low key hope they lose, but like I also hope they beat the crap out of the Cardinals at the same time. So I'm definitely conflicted.
I should say that they'll only fall assuming Indy, Dallas lose. If one of those teams wins, then the Niners might only fall to 12 or 13 if both Indy and Dallas win. This is assuming they all lose, and of course, Arizona would lose because the Niners would win. So
It's
What
too bad.
if they all have the same record,
It's too bad New Orleans like couldn't win a couple more.
Well, I was going to say, what happens if New Orleans wins? Because doesn't New Orleans have a pretty easy game?
from what I understand, the Niners can't leapfrog them. The highest they can get is 11. The lowest they can get is 14.
Okay, because of that strength of schedule. So
Yeah.
New Orleans had a much weaker schedule, and they will have the same amount of wins. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. So what do I want to see? I want to see them play hard. I would like to see them win. I want to see them try to win. I don't really care that much whether or not they win or lose. I want to see them try to win. I'll put it that way. If it looks like they, or not even all of them, because I know there's going to be some guys that are going to be all about it. But if it looks like there's some guys that are not interested or making business decisions or whatever, then I mean, I don't want to see that, and I think that's important to know for next year. It kind of goes back to what Bosa said a couple weeks ago, right? Like, who wants to be here? I still stand by that too. Like, let's show us that you want to be part of the Niner culture, the Niner way. Chase, and it's funny you talked about you kind of want to see us like choke it away. So you're saying you want them to like settle for a lot of moody field goals then, rather than
Yeah. That's how we'll know that they are trying to throw if they keep throwing Moody out there.
they get to like the 40, so it's a long one, or the high 30s, and then they just start running the ball to juice time after time or something. Um, but anyways, I think it would be fun to see the Niners just smack the Cardinals. Just a good way to end the season, go into the offseason on a high note. I got to think Dobbs is motivated,
Yeah.
not just for revenge, but also for his next contract. I would love to see JJ get the 1,000. I got to think that Dobbs is going to be working hard to get him that. Like he's, his college teammate, and that's
He
great.
said as much during his press conference earlier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't come along all that often. I mean, you take it for granted when you are, somebody like a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, because you're featured and you're a stud and you're going to get it. But like for the the majority of receivers, 1,000 yards, pretty big deal that you won't have come around every season. So
He'll be able to say that for the rest of his life that he was a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL.
yeah, I
I expect him to be next year too. I'll just put that out there.
I hope that they can do that for him, and I know that he will be one of those guys that's ready to play. He's not going to be making any business decisions. You know that about him.
No.
So that's what I want to see. I just want to see some fight. I want to see some desire. I want to see, them come out and just take it to the Cardinals as best as they can. And if they end up losing while doing that, then okay, I can live with that because there's not really any consequences. I really don't feel like there's going to be a big difference between 11 and 14. I just don't. I mean, I could be wrong about that. I don't know how many, tackles there are, whether offense or defense, in this draft, and like, oh well, you got to be in the top 12 or else you don't get one. I don't think anybody knows how the boards are going to fall at this point. So the odds of you being in a draft and getting, somebody who's going to change your team at 11 but not 14, I feel like are very slim.
Even if they even if they like, even if what you said comes true, like there's always the flexibility. If there's a quarterback that someone really wants that they want to jump up and grab, then we have a little bit more leverage to trade back and stuff like that. So that's really why I want the higher draft pick. I mean, I don't know the board yet either. I haven't started that research, but I just feel like it gives us more flexibility to trade back. And who knows? There might be a stud. I feel like in past drafts, I feel like once you get past like 10, there's like a slight drop off. I feel like once you get into the teens, I just feel like at 11, you have a high chance of like an absolute stud that maybe has a red flag or whatever. A bunch of teams wanted quarterbacks to like slip out. And so I feel like 11 to 14 could be.
So I'm not going to pretend to know like where guys are going to end up, but I don't get the sense that this is a strong quarterback draft. I mean, isn't it just
Yeah.
Shador and
From what I
Cam Ward?
understand,
Yeah.
people are saying that if Shador and Cam Ward, which are the two top quarterbacks in this class, if they came out last year, they would be like the 6th and 7th quarterbacks drafted, not in the top 2 or
Yeah.
3 or 4.
So
Yeah.
they will probably get picked early because they're quarterbacks and because they have potential, and there will be guys that fall in love with them, right? That are making the decisions. But I don't think that you can expect there to be like some team jumping up to 9 to get the 3rd or 4th quarterback off the board. You know, like and I don't know if I agree with you get absolute studs in the top 10. I feel like you're not.
Well, yeah.
It's hit and miss.
Yeah. You're not even guaranteed absolute studs in the top 5. I mean, it's closer, but I feel like that's where you see some of the reaches for quarterbacks. You know, in the top 5, and then in the top 10 is like from 6 to 10 is where you might start to see some of the like can't miss, and I put that in quotes because people miss on the can't misses, right? But the can't miss prospects. But I feel like you still see those guys going in the teens. You know, there's always guys that are like, how did he fall this far? It seems like the Eagles always end up picking those guys. So maybe this will be the Niners
TJ
year to
Watt
get
was
one of
drafted
those
in the
guys.
20s.
What
Yeah,
you say, right?
TJ Watt was drafted in the 20s, so
Yeah.
and Solomon Thomas was drafted 2nd. So
Oof.
it guarantees nothing.
Yeah.
The thing about 11, from what I understand, there's a couple defensive tackles from Michigan that are both really good that are projected to be top 12 to top 15 picks. One of them is projected a little higher than the other. It'd be really cool if one of those guys probably fell to the Niners. It'd be really cool too if one of those quarterbacks somehow fell to the Niners. Not because I want them to draft one, because I want someone to get desperate to trade up with the Niners because I want them to trade back and get more picks and try to get another second round pick or even a first round pick next year. Try to just acquire as much draft capital as possible.
It'd be interesting to see how many quarterback needy teams there are, because I feel like in the last few years there's been so many quarterbacks picked, and I know they haven't all panned out, but I also feel like it's too early to give up on all of them. And so like Bryce Young doesn't look great, but do you really think the Panthers are already gonna try to get another quarterback? Maybe.
He's kind of turned his career around the second half of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to pick a quarterback.
Right, but I mean, so teams like the bad teams. I mean, honestly, the Jets should be looking for a quarterback, and I know the Giants will be because of moving on from Daniel Jones. So there's a couple teams that are pretty obvious. I feel like the Raiders should be thinking about that too.
Tennessee,
but Tennessee. I mean, really, like, are they really ready to say no more Will Levis? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think so.
I'm looking at a big board right now, and I see the guy you were talking about, Mason Graham, the higher one. He's the number 3 on this big board, number 3 overall player. And then
big white guy.
Is he? I don't know. It doesn't show a picture of him. I just know his name's Mason Graham.
Yeah, he looked like a slightly
Mason.
shorter version of Justin Smith or something.
6'3", 320. Yeah, he looks like a big boy. There's honestly a decent amount of, not a ton of defensive tackles, but looks like there's some good edge
rushers,
and honestly some tackles that are like 1 to 15 that I'm seeing.
I've kind of heard the tackles in this draft are just okay. Like there isn't like the Penei Sewell or the Trent Williams caliber prospect. There's just like solid guys. One
Mhm.
of them's from the University of Texas, like I've mentioned. I'm sure Kyle's been
Yep.
watching the heck out of him.
And Ohio State, Josh Simmons, number 10 overall.
And I think there's a couple corners that are projected to go really high too. So
Yeah,
I wonder if the top 10 or 12 picks will be like maybe 70 or 80% defensive players and a couple quarterbacks and a tackle or something.
yeah.
I feel like a lot's going to depend on free agency too, and what the Niners end up doing, who they can bring in, if they do make some trades, who they let go. Like I feel like that's going to have a big impact, because if they're able to add some veteran guys to the O line, that doesn't make it as much of a need, right? So then focus on D, or vice versa, right? So just depends.
The number one top rated prospect is an edge rusher. His name's Abdul Carter from Penn State.
Penn State, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I asked you guys kind of like, what do you want to see in this Cardinals game? We're just talking about the draft. That shows
Yeah,
you how much
that's
we
funny.
care about this stupid, worthless game. um, yeah, I mean, I don't. I want to see Juwan get his 1,000 yards. Honestly, outside that, I don't care. I don't want to see George if he's going to play. Just don't get hurt. Bosa, Fred, you guys are going to play. Just don't get hurt. That's really all I care about is the post game injury report. Ideally, I'd kind of like I'd agree with Jason, like have a nice competitive hard fought game, and then make sure you send Moody out for a 58-yard game winner, and make sure he's just does what Jake Moody does. So
Kyle goes and whispers in his ear, lock in, lock in.
Yeah.
yeah,
just have,
lock in, and
just have
and
Debo
hit the
still be on
post.
the sideline, even if he's not playing, and just be hanging out next to Moody the whole time, and he'll just fold like a cheap suit.
Special teams consultant Debo Samuel.
Yeah. Um,
Shoot, they could use any upgrade at the special teams coordinator. Maybe they need to hire Debo Samuel there to just motivate the guys.
I would like to see. You said things you don't care about, whatever. I'd like to see Pearsall have another strong game. I think it would be
Yeah.
good to put together like two solid games. He doesn't have to be as big of a game as he had last week. That was pretty nuts for like a rookie wideout to do
Yeah.
that. But it would be nice if he could follow it up with like 5 to 8 catches for somewhere between like 70 and 110 yards. And if he gets in the end zone again, great. But just like another like game where it's like, oh, he's consistently getting open, making impact plays, because I feel like it's just been hit or miss with a lot more miss. And I'm not saying that's his fault. It just might be the game flow, number not getting called, whatever, right? But yeah, it would just be good to see. Hey, we've got something here.
Mm-hmm. There's three.
Yeah, I'd like to see. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say there's three things that I'm really looking for. Is number one, what Steven said, is pride. Like I know Fred's going to bring it, Bosa going to bring it, Kittle going to bring it, Jawan going to bring it, no matter what. And I would include Lenore in there, and obviously Drake Greenlaw. Like if they
He's
were
pissed off.
Yeah. So I definitely want to see pride. And then the second thing would be I want to see how bad the young guys want it and what kind of dog and pride and fight they got in them. Garindo comes to mind. I think it could be a big Garindo game. I don't have the stats on the Cardinals defense, but I feel like they've been pretty bad. So I'd love to see Garindo be heavily featured and go over 100 yards and put all the stuff he's been working on this season together. And then the third thing I was going to say was just that I hope they lose.
I want to see Izzy Abanikanda. I know Garendo's the one we drafted and drafted him pretty high in the third round, and they want to keep developing him, and he can be the lead back for sure. But can we get Abanikanda like 5 or 6 or 7 touches?
How many years has he been in the league, Ryan?
This is only his second year. He's like 22.
Okay. I mean, I feel like, Kyle's going to find a way to draft a running back this year because he does every year. But like, if Elijah Mitchell comes back and he's still under contract, no, but I mean, what I'm saying is, yeah, no, I hear you, but don't waste a pick like on a running back is I guess what I'm saying, because even if they do let Mason go elsewhere, which we had talked about before. Like usually they wouldn't let a restricted free agent go, but they might in this case. I mean, you're looking at McCaffrey, Garindo, potentially Mitchell, and I mean I don't know what Patrick Taylor's status is. They're going to keep him around, but if Abanikanda has any juice or any potential, I mean that's enough. You've already got enough, and then you can just fill out with an undrafted guy, or maybe there's some absolute stud that slips further than they should, and then you can use a later pick because it's running back and nobody values it anymore. I don't know, but I just hope that they don't end up using, which they probably will,
Yeah.
a third or fourth round pick on a running back.
At this
Day
point,
3 pick is fine by me.
yeah, I was gonna say the same. At this point, I'm hoping it's just not in day 1 or day 2, and that they don't use multiple picks, because Kyle's done that too, or he's drafted 2 running backs the same draft. And
I'll say, if you replace, in your scenario there, Steven, if you replace Elijah Mitchell with Jordan Mason, I would be very happy with that running back room.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
Mitchell,
I feel like
it's time.
So maybe I just.
But he's more value, to your point, he's more valuable than Mitchell. So if you wanted to sign him to like a tender, and then hopefully a team will trade for him and make him their lead back.
That's true.
Then then maybe you bring Mitchell back cheap. And
I feel like Mitchell is better than he gets credit for because he's been so injured. Like I feel like
just haven't seen him play in 3 years.
Right, exactly, and that sucks. It's a real concern, but I just feel like the best version of Mitchell is really damn good and can help the team a lot, and I think is a better pass catcher than Mason. Not that you necessarily need that. I know Mason has worked on that and he's been better this year, but I still think Mitchell is going to be superior in that department. I don't know. I just, yeah, it's hopefully McCaffrey stays healthy. Hopefully they can work in Garindo a little bit more and do a little bit more of a shared role. And it's not really going to matter who the third, fourth, and fifth running backs are, but
yeah.
But I hear you. Like right now, I would say that Mason has more value. So you do with that what you will. Does that mean keep him around? Are you going to have Mason play special teams again? Maybe. But yeah, it's just it seems like one that you wouldn't have to spend any money on with Mason, and you could kind of do right by him and let him have an opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to see, like Cowing and Abanikanda, because like if you put Abanikanda in there and he's just fumbling the ball away, or he just can't find the hole and he rushes 5 carries for 6 yards or something, then it's like, hey, maybe we need to go get another running back this offseason. If he flashes a couple, I don't know, 5 carries for 25 yards, then maybe, that'll tell you what you need to know in the offseason. And I just want them to try. I want to find out what they've got in some of these young guys. Like, I'd like to see Cowing get some reps at wide receiver and get some targets, because maybe he's an explosive wide receiver we've got sitting on our bench that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I trust Kyle's seeing some of this stuff in practice, and he has a pretty good idea. And there's sometimes, not always, I think Jordan Mason was ready 2 years ago, but he also came out and said, Mason did, that he was not quite like as serious about learning the playbook as he should have been, and it took him a little longer. Sometimes I wish Kyle would do a better job at getting the young guys ready, like Cowing this season. If Kyle says he's not ready, then he's not ready. I believe him, but is there some way we could expedite this guy's development and just get him some opportunities?
I think Cowing will have him this week if Debo's out too. I mean, you've got to have pass catchers out there, and so no Debo, no Ayuk, obviously.
Yeah, like I don't want to see Chris Conley. He caught a ball last week. Like we know what Chris Conley is.
Yeah,
we don't need to see Chris Conley. Let the new number 19 go out there, and if he makes mistakes, he makes mistakes. Let him learn from him.
Yep.
He was on the field last week. Remember, he had the offensive pass interference call that took away a big play from Kittle right before the end of the first half. So
yeah.
It's probably hard too. It's like Kyle's like, I'm trying to get him on the field, and then he does stuff like that. So, but hey, like that's how these guys learn.
But hey, one more thing, because you guys have kind of talked about, and I've just been throwing in things I want to see. I would love to see George get a couple touchdowns and get to double digits. If he's going to play, just like feed Juwan all day, and I would love for Juwan to get some touchdowns too. But if you get inside the 20, and especially if you get inside the 15 or 10, you better be looking at 85 the whole time.
Yeah, I want to see Kittle's stat line is 2 catches for 7 yards, 2 touchdowns.
And won like 10 catches for 150 yards, no touchdowns.
He could get a
Yeah.
touchdown in there too. Come on. But yeah.
And they lose 28-27.
Yeah.
Gotta lose too.
Oh man.
I also want to see them somewhat stop James Conner. James Conner just pissed me
He's
off.
been on IR.
Oh, he's on IR?
He's been on IR. I don't know if he still is.
But no,
Well,
I actually saw something come out that was, I think, last week talking about him being like a sneaky pickup in fantasy, so he might be back.
Really?
But I have no idea.
I can Google it in the background. I just remember that he just pissed me off in the last game with how unable they were able. It says he is on IR.
He just got placed on IR 2 days ago.
Okay.
Season-ending injury.
So that's where you need Dre Greenlaw, because he just James Conner like took it apart.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a big physical back. He's tough.
So
for sure.
Speaking of Dre, I know this was like he's not playing in this game or whatever, but I was talking with Randy the other day, my cousin Randy, and he was saying that he doesn't think the Niners will be able to bring him back. He thinks that he's going to get offered too much money elsewhere. I was like, oh, come on, no, they got to think positive. They can still do it.
That's what I was saying.
But he's like, why wouldn't you give that guy like $20 million a year? I'm like,
yeah.
Oh man,
I don't know about that. I mean, Fred Warner gets paid $18 million a year, and he's not coming off an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what he means. I mean, I think the Niners gave him that deal a couple years ago. It was like $8.5 million a year, somewhere around there. Someone could give him a deal worth $10 or $12 million per year.
I wonder what it takes for Dre to stay. Like, if the Niners offer him 12 a year, is that enough, or is it's only enough if nobody else exceeds it?
Yeah, that would be my guess. If the Niners were to offer him something nice like $12 million a year, but the Cowboys are offering him $15 million a year, probably see it.
Yeah.
Like I think he wants to be a Niner, but he's not gonna. I mean, he said it like 2 weeks ago. Like, I want to get paid.
Yeah, of course.
He kind of made known where his priorities are, and I get it. Like he's coming off a devastating injury. He's getting into his late 20s. Like, it's time to cash in. You've had the Super Bowl runs. You came up short. Time to cash in.
This is going to be his biggest contract, I'm sure, that he ever signs. So he needs to get everything he can, and I won't fault him for that. I just hope there's a way the Niners can find a way to squeeze it in.
And I hope it doesn't end up being a Cowboys. Like, I don't go somewhere where I can still root for you. Go play for the friggin' Dolphins. I don't care. Just don't go to the Cowboys, dude. Don't do that. Don't go to the Packers.
Is it speculated that he go to the Cowboys? Is that why you're saying that?
It's just they have a need, and I've seen articles where Cowboys are like, "Hey, this guy's going to be leaving the Niners." It's just that off season. The Cowboys suck like we do, so it's just that off season speculation is starting, and they just have a need. There's probably plenty of teams that have a need. Just send them to go play for Jim Harbaugh or something.
The Cowboys are like the Lakers, where their fans just delusionally think every good player is going to go to the Cowboys no matter what.
They're America's team, and everyone wants to play for us. Like,
every single player is going to the Cowboys. It's like,
I think
put him next to Roquan Smith in Baltimore or something.
Oh man,
dang.
I think he'd be a good Raider.
But why?
Fine. Go to the Raiders. That's fine.
They suck and they have a bad culture. I don't want to see him.
That's why they need Dre.
Right. Just the silver and black and the old school, of what the Raiders mean. And Antonio Pierce, assuming he's still going to be there, like a linebacker as the head coach that was a tough guy, would absolutely love him.
No doubt. I wouldn't assume Antonio Pierce is going to be there, though.
I'm not. Yeah, that's why I said if I qualified it if he's going to be there. But anyway, so yeah, I just thought it was interesting that like if they can't bring him back, if he's just priced out completely, then that kind of changes my thoughts on the importance of Mooney, because I've had it like Dre, then Mooney, than, whoever after that. I don't really care that much about resigning Hufanga, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, the draft could be big on that on the Mooney one too because there's like one or two corners that are like really highly rated, and if
Hmm.
one of them falls to the Niners and they draft him, then that's probably all you need to know about Mooney's future. The only problem is for that is free agency is a month before the draft, so
They'll know what they need, yeah.
someone will either pay him already and he'll be signed, or he'll just be kind of waiting. Like in my opinion, in a perfect world for the NFL front office is like it goes draft then free agency. So you draft the guys you need, and then whatever you didn't get, you fill the holes in free agency. But I think it's the players union who are the veterans who they're like, hell no,
Yep.
we're the veterans, we're the priority. We want to get signed to our teams, then you can fill what you didn't get in the draft.
I think Shanahan has actually made the exact point that you've made, Ryan. I think he said that in the past, that he would prefer if it was flipped.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of coaches and GMs who do, but it's the players who are like, no way, because those guys, a lot of guys would lose jobs
Right.
because they would have a young guy would come in, and then all of a sudden, all of their negotiating power is gone.
Yep.
So it makes sense from a player's perspective. I get it. So, you guys want to talk about the Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
So let's see. Here are the Niners Pro Bowlers.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why Kyle Juszczyk is up there, but George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, all pretty deserving. Kyle Juszczyk is, I don't know, the token fullback, I guess. Um, Diomedor Lenore apparently was pretty upset on social media. I haven't seen it. He feels like he got snubbed. Do you think there are any? First of all, do you agree that these four guys all deserve it? And do you think there's anybody that got snubbed?
Well, I don't know anything about other fullbacks, so I'm just gonna assume Kyle Juszczyk is still the best fullback. So, um, out of these four, yeah, they all deserve it. Fred has not had a good season past week 4, so not that I'm like surprised because he has such a big name. Of course, he's gonna make the Pro Bowl. Um, Bosa and Kittle. I don't know. Has Bosa had a Pro Bowl worthy season?
Pro Bowl worthy, you know, probably, I guess, sure. All pro, probably not.
I'd say the two that upset me are Lenore for sure, Lenore, and then why not Jawan? Like, I guess I don't know the guys that made it over him, but that's the other one that comes to mind.
Justin Jefferson. I mean,
Yeah, like
there's
those are
so
the
many
guys he's
receivers.
competing with.
Yeah, in the NFC that are just way bigger stats than he's got.
Mm.
Honestly,
Let's see.
I I don't think I love Lenore. You guys know that. I've been talking about it all year, and I would have loved if he made the Pro Bowl. But I don't even know if it's a snub. I think it's just unfortunate that there's that many good corners, and he was just the odd man out. And unfortunately, with the Pro Bowl stuff, you need to have some more of the stats. You need to have, more interceptions, or fumble recoveries or forced fumbles or whatever. And so I am so glad to have Lenore on the team. I think he's underappreciated and would love for him to get the recognition, but I understand why he didn't make it.
Yeah,
He's
so I actually had this ready because I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. I've seen a lot of people upset that he didn't make it. I have no problem with him not making it. To me, he's a good player, and if he made it, I'd say great, good for him. But he he isn't like like to me, Dre Greenlaw last season, that was a snub.
Yep.
He was a top 3 linebacker in the NFL, and he didn't make a Pro Bowl or an All Pro. Those to me are the snubs. Like Patrick Mahomes didn't make the Pro Bowl this season. Like
But you understand why he didn't. He shouldn't.
I don't know. I mean, stats, I guess, but you're telling me he's not one of the 4 best quarterbacks in the AFC?
No,
Not
but
this year.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying
It's 15 and
he's
4.
not having he's not having one of the three best seasons this year. I would still take him on my team over any of those other three guys, but if you're rewarding somebody for the production in the season that they've had, he's not ahead of those three.
I guess if you talk about production as like yards and touchdowns and picks and stuff, to me, which is fine, I get that, but to me, it's like he carried the Chiefs to a 15-1 number one seed. Like
Yep.
the point is, like that to me is more of a snub. Lenore's like these are just his stats. These aren't even PFF grades. Some people like the PFF grades, others don't. These are just his stats, and like I don't see some like Pro Bowl snub here. I see a solid player, but a Pro Bowl snub, I don't know.
I agree. That's kind of what I was trying to say. And honestly, I feel like I can't think of another candidate on the Niners that you could say would even be considered a snub. Like I feel like Lenore is the closest thing to it. So,
Yeah,
um, as far as the guys that made it, I I feel like Fred is the man and deserves all the recognition he can get. But it's been a down year by his standards, so it's hard to talk about rewarding him, for that. But maybe there's just not that many other good linebackers in the NFC. Same thing with Bosa. It's been a down year for his standards. He's been dinged up. I get that, and I feel like lately he's kind of made more of a charge, in the last couple weeks. And
What is? Or go ahead.
and then Juice, like I feel like Juice is fine. Like Chasen said, I don't know how to compare him to other fullbacks out there, but I still feel like with my limited knowledge of other fullbacks, I don't know of any others that are as versatile or that do as much overall for the team. I don't feel like Juice is a problem. I know, Ryan, you've talked about moving on and not not being the biggest fan of him. I think he's fine. I also think he's not as integral as he used to be to the offensive success, but I'm fine with him making it. Yeah.
no
I
Jake
didn't know.
Moody. Sad.
I didn't know J.C. Horn was having a good season. Obviously, don't watch the Panthers, but I thought he was like a bust. But I guess
He
he's
was
coming.
injured a lot early in his career, I think, and he's probably been healthier and playing better.
It sounds like if he made a Pro Bowl. I
Zach
have.
Bond, I heard a lot of good things about for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have what Lenore said pulled up. If you guys want to hear it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing he responded to, which by the way, really quick, I want to preface this was what is a Pro Bowl alternate? Because it said he was selected as a Pro Bowl alternate.
Oh, wow.
That's like if a team goes to the Super Bowl and their players can't play, then they start going into the alternates, or if someone gets hurt and they can't make it, then they'll start digging into the alternates. Like, but to me, the alternates are meaningless because um, Jake Brendel was a Pro Bowl alternate a couple years ago, and you know he's been living off that for a couple years. So Tyler Hunley, do you guys even know who that is?
Yeah, backup for the Ravens at the time, but yeah.
Yeah, like he somehow made a Pro Bowl as an alternate because multiple guys couldn't go or simply didn't want to go. So all of a sudden, Tyler Huntley, who started a couple games for the Ravens,
Well,
he's
and I
there. Like,
think I think it's also become a bit of a thing where some guys will not go just so other guys can be like it can be said that they were named to the Pro Bowl.
yeah, see, like that's the Pro Bowl to me. If I played in the NFL, I could not care less about the Pro Bowl. Like, I want an All Pro.
Yeah,
Like Brandon
Yeah.
Ayuk last season missed the Pro Bowl, was a second team All Pro. To me, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that 10 out of 10 times.
absolutely. Pro Bowl is like
I-
fantasy football in my eyes. It's like the difference between fantasy football and real football, and also it's a popularity contest, as evidenced by a couple of the Niners who made it, even though they're not having their best years. But that's fine.
Official.
It's more like you get career recognition in the Pro Bowl, the All Pro is like guys that are actually studs in that year, and people that know things are voting them in.
So the Niners have 4 alternates. It is edge rusher Leonard Floyd, quarterback Brock Purdy, tackle Trent Williams, and cornerback Diamador Lenore. Are
Yeah,
there?
like Trent probably made it on name value.
Yep.
Because even when he was healthy and playing, like he wasn't the Trent Williams that we know and love.
No.
Honestly, Leonard Floyd probably made it on name too. Not that he's as big of a name, but he's at least a known entity.
How dare you disrespect Leonard like that? All right. So this is what Lenore said. First thing is he responded to it on Instagram saying highway robbery, shaking my head. Then he went to Twitter after that and said, are we watching film or going off names that SHIT ain't even close, 100. And then after that, he said, don't ever let them tell you that your draft status don't matter, implying that because he was drafted so low, he didn't make it. So
So
that's what he
it would be interesting to see like the stats for those guys. Like, I know that there was a thing about Devin Witherspoon, the Seahawks guy. Like,
he's
I
a
think
stud.
everybody knows he's a good player,
Mm-hmm.
and because he's been touted like from the beginning, so he's been at the forefront of everybody's minds, and you just think, oh, he's a good player, and he's not screwing up, so he's still a good player. He's going to make it. But like, he has no interceptions this year. And like, I'm not saying it's all about interceptions, but I'm just saying like there's not really a good case for him to be made with stats. It's more about, well, he's a good player, we know he's a good player, and he stayed out there and been healthy, and we haven't heard about him screwing up, so he's in, you know. But
I've watched a decent amount of Seahawks, and I didn't know about the picks, but I'll say he splashes every time I watch the Seahawks. He's blowing stuff up in the run game, sticky in coverage. So he must have just not have the picks coming his way. But I firmly think he is like legit a stud.
so that's fine. I'm not trying to question whether or not he's a stud. I'm just saying I think that's the kind of stuff that, especially a position like corner. I remember back in the day, like Nnamdi Asomugha, when he was on the Raiders, he had a couple years where he was just a
Yeah,
stud,
he
and
would
he
have like
got
19 targets thrown his way in a whole year
right,
because he was so
exactly,
good.
right, exactly. So it's like you're doing your job so well that you don't get opportunities, and it's like he deserved to have that, and maybe that's what's going on with the guy up in Seattle. I don't know, but it would just be interesting to see. I'm not saying you need to pull him up, Ryan, but be interesting
I'm
to
not.
see the stats for those four guys compared to Lenore's. Like, are there guys on there that are just absolutely standing out? Because also that guy on the Lions that just got two interceptions
Kirby
against,
Joseph.
yeah,
Yeah.
like so he's got a bunch of picks. Did you
He
guys
leads
see?
the league with 9.
Did you see him do anything impressive in the game other than catch those easy interceptions that were thrown to him?
No, no, absolutely not.
And so
No.
it's like he's your league leader in interceptions, so you would think that that would mean that he's a stud. I was not impressed by him watching him play. Doesn't maybe that was his worst game of the year, and he just happened to snag a couple picks. And I don't even think he's on the roster. I don't know, but I'm just using him as an example of like,
He
of
didn't make the
course,
Pro Bowl.
yeah, of course, stats can be misleading. I mean, that was the whole thing with who's the guy in the Cowboys that was like leading the is it
Deron
Diggs
Bland.
or
It was Deron
Bland
Bland.
too?
He had like multiple. He was returning his interceptions for touchdowns. Or Diggs was actually kind of the same. He had a ton of picks, but he was giving up a ton of catches and yards too.
Right, right. So it's like, what do you want? What do you like in your players? Like, who do you think's good? And I feel like from that standpoint, I've seen Lenore way more than anybody else. So I'm happy he's on our team because I see play in and play out the effort and him doing the little things right. And I don't really care that much if he makes the Pro Bowl or not.
Yeah, like last year, Deron Bland had that. I think it was last year. He had a bunch of picks and he was returning them for interceptions, and he ended up making the All Pro team. And but he was giving up a ton of yards and catches too. And I'm watching Mooney play, and he's not turning the ball over that much. But I give me Mooney over Bland
Yep,
because he's just a better corner in my opinion. So,
yep,
um, and I think when Lenore says don't ever let them tell you the draft position doesn't matter, he's probably specifically referring to Devin Witherspoon because he was like a top 5 pick or something.
yep.
And yeah, that's probably and also Lenore. No, we are not watching film. Like, these are Pro Bowl voters. We're not watching film and
That's right.
grinding the 22 tape. Like,
Yeah.
so hopefully that helps in the future. No
Yeah.
one's paying attention to that stuff, DMO. Hopefully now you know though.
Did you guys see the video of Derrick Henry's lack of reaction when he was told that he made the Pro Bowl and he was the starter?
No,
Because you guys are talking about how it's Pro Bowl, doesn't matter. So there's like this video, like they call him into the office. It's like, hey, you made the Pro Bowl. He's like, cool. And then like, you're the starter. He's like, bet. And it's just like,
he's like, yeah, again, I know.
yeah. It's like, and everybody's like giving him his flowers for that. Like, oh, he obviously doesn't care. This is meaningless. He wants a Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, that's how it should be. And good on him for having that reaction.
Henry reminds me, he's like the Kawhi Leonard of the NFL. Just super monotone, all about his business, good at the game, so on and so forth.
The only difference is Derek's a Hall of Famer.
Ooh.
But I know what you mean. I did see the Ravens told Zay Flowers he was a Pro Bowler, and he was like really excited and got emotional. And then there's Derrick Henry. It's just like, yeah, what's that, number 7, 8, 9? I kind of lost
I
count at
think they
this point.
said 9 for him, but I'm not sure. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
He's
that
a stud.
Derrick Henry's he's so good. I wonder, he must not have like the kind of incentives in his contract where he gets a big bonus for making a Pro Bowl, or he does, and he's just like, yeah, of course I cashed it,
I'm
whatever.
sure he's made so much money. Like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, he probably is just playing for a ring at this point.
Yeah,
He's 6'3", and he's a running back. He's 6'3", 200.
245.
Yeah, he's listed at 247. He's 31 years old.
If
He-
he's listed at 247, he's probably more like in the mid to high 250s. And he can still run like incredibly fast. Like, it's just unfair.
Yeah, if he gets to the second level and he gets an angle, like he still has those long strides. He's gone. He's different than like CJ 2K, who was just so fast. And Derek is fast, but he's just got those long strides. When you watch him run down the sideline and everyone's chasing him, it doesn't look like he's moving that fast, but
Yeah.
he's every 2 or 3 steps he's gaining. That's like 15 yards, and the other guys are just
Yep.
trying to run him down and they can't. He's awesome.
It's funny
Niners
to
should
see him
sign
in
him
the
next year.
backfield next to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's kind of skinny. And
Oh yeah, I'm sure he towers over.
yeah.
Let's see. Draft pick. We won't go over the fourth place schedules yet. Pro Bowl. You guys want to talk about Jed York's comments on Kyle and John, or this wacky 22 season streak of the 49ers?
It is wacky, isn't it?
Yeah, why don't we talk about it real quick? 22 straight seasons the Niners have either missed the playoffs or gone to the NFC Championship game. They are the ultimate boom or bust team. And it makes being a 49er fan, I think, really interesting, because you're either drafting in like the top 10 and it's like, who are we going to get? Or holy crap, we might win the Super Bowl this year. And there is no in between. The Niners don't get bounced in the wild card. They don't, even when whether they're the number 1 seed or if they barely squeak into the playoffs, they're winning playoff games. You can bet on it.
It's like the old San Francisco Giants during that stretch, except the Giants would actually win. They would win the World Series every other year. Yeah, it's weird. It's like it seems to usually be marred by injury. It seems like that is the Niners' downfall.
There's definitely been a couple of those.
Yeah, and it piles up to it. Go ahead, Steven. You want to go?
Well, I was just going to say it's a bit like not an outlier, but like, so Kyle, like, you have the ammunition, whether you love Kyle or you hate Kyle, right? Because you can look at him and say this is his 8th year, and in half the years he's missed the playoffs, and then also in half the years he's gone at least to the NFC Championship game or further. And like you said, it makes being a Niner fan interesting. I'm obviously pro Kyle. We've talked about that plenty of times, and I'm glad he's our coach. So the way that I look at that is like, yeah, he missed the playoffs the first 2 years that he was there when they were in total rebuild mode and trying to get like his type of roster. And then the only 2 seasons that he hasn't gone to the NFC Championship game have been crazy riddled with injuries. So, not saying that you can just completely, discount that, because injuries are a part of the league and you got to be plan for depth and whatever, right? I get all that. But at the same time, it is a reality that some of their best, most important players in each of those seasons, when he's had his team, right, like in place, when they haven't made a run to the championship game, there's been significant injuries. I don't think anybody can refute that. So to me, it's a much more of a positive on him. It's kind of a crazier thing though when you talk about 22 seasons of like going back and looking at it. I think it just kind of shows how they were really stuck in no man's land. And yeah, they were able to pull themselves out for a few years, in the Harbaugh era. But yeah, they were just kind of like that mediocrity that you don't want to be in. You weren't bad enough. I mean, I know they got the number one pick with Alex Smith, whatever, but generally speaking, they weren't bad enough to get, or they weren't bad enough at the right time to get that, generational guy. So yeah, it's just nuts. It's like one of those statistical oddities. I feel like this year, if not for the amount of injuries, they would have been a playoff team that didn't make it to the NFC title game. And I don't remember enough about the circumstances of 2020, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was also one of those seasons where they would have made the playoffs but not made it to the title game because of, you know, the quality of the other opponents and everything.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to say for 2020. I agree, but this season, I don't know. I mean, they've got some veterans who have done it. Kyle has done it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they went to like Minnesota and beat the Vikings
Mm.
or something like that, and went to Philadelphia and beat the Eagles and met the Lions in the NFC Championship game and lost that one. I wouldn't have been surprised if this team had made it if they were healthy. Obviously, that then they would have made it or healthier. Let's say you have no Ayuk, but let's say they've got McCaffrey and Trent, and Fred's ankles are good,
And Greenlaw.
and Greenlaw's got his legs under him, and Mooney's out there. All of a sudden I'm like,
Oof. It's a good roster.
why couldn't this team get
No,
get back to the Super Bowl?
yeah, they could. They could. I wasn't saying that they didn't have a shot. I'm just saying most likely based on what we've
Yeah,
seen, because they were other than McCaffrey, they were, and I guess Greenlaw, they were pretty healthy when they played the Vikings early in the season, and the Vikings, like, they didn't demolish them, but they
they almost did
they
if it
clearly
wasn't for
beat
Fred
them.
Warner.
I feel like there was, leave no doubt. If it wasn't for Fred, they would have been embarrassed. I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. But that being said, it's like I just wouldn't be surprised if they went and beat Sam Darnold's Vikings
Sure,
in the
sure. In the
playoffs. It just,
playoffs.
as underdogs, like it just wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well,
Something
they
about this
proved,
team, it's like when they get in, they just will themselves to victories.
and they proved last week they were right there with the Lions. And honestly, I feel like the Eagles, kind of in a weird way, like Saquon's amazing, but the Eagles overall, I feel like are a little overrated.
Debo would have gone crazy in that game. That would have been one of his big games. He'll carry us through the Eagles.
The Eagles are really good. They're just hamstrung by their quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Jed York's comments?
Sure. So he basically said about a week or so ago, he told Tim Kawakami after the who'd they lose to right before the Lions game?
Dolphins.
Was it the Dolphins?
Yeah, it was the Dolphins. It might have been before that because I thought it was a home game, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Either way, he basically said Kyle and John aren't going anywhere. Gave him a big vote of confidence, and those are his guys. Which isn't really breaking news. There's been a lot of criticism of Kyle, especially of Kyle, John too, from fans and various media members. Um, to me, it's a little like I wonder if I've heard Larry Krueger talk about this a little bit. Like he thinks that, and I tend to kind of agree with him that the Niners front office and head coach, which is the coaches in general, they need a little pressure put on them. Like even if it's fake, like even if you're happy with Kyle and you want to keep him around, don't let him know that. Make him think his job is up in the air. Make John think his job is up in the air. Like put some, like Chris Sims likes to say, put some red hot pokers to their butts and motivate them, and don't give them all this security that for years down the road, you guys aren't going anywhere. Because I wonder if it lets them get a little lax. And
Hmm.
I wish Jed would have maybe said like, we'll review their performances in the off season. If you
Dang.
just say something like that, then it's like, oh. Even if in his mind he's thinking like, yeah, those guys aren't going anywhere. But put that out in public, and all of a sudden there's some pressure applied. And I just wonder if Kyle and John, and even like Kyle's been saying throughout the off or throughout the season, Nick Sorensen. I really like what Nick Sorensen is doing. Either like either you're wrong and Sorensen like sucks and you can't see it, or you're lying. Either way, like apply some pressure. Like say Sorensen needs to do better. You've been saying all season that Brian Schneider's been good. No, he hasn't. They were saying Devondre Campbell's been good. No, he hasn't. They just gave Jake Moody a big vote of confidence. Doesn't deserve it. Like maybe they need to start applying some pressure publicly to get these guys like a little extra motivation or something. I'm not totally sure. There's times to give your coaches and your players a vote of confidence, and there's a time to apply pressure. And I don't know. Something about like I'm happy Kyle's the coach. I want him to still be here, but a part of me kind of wishes Jed would apply the red hot poker.
I wonder though, I feel like public ridicule, especially from like an owner, would put the media in a frenzy. A lot
Yeah,
of people are already speculating about Kyle, the Bears. There's a lot of teams that want him because he's a really good head coach. And so I personally wouldn't like that. I would rather have the vote of confidence and the owner behind closed doors be like, look, I really like you guys and you're here for a reason, but like, you need to turn this stuff around. Like this season was
that's fair.
blah, blah, blah. I would rather that. And obviously, we don't know. We'll never know if Jed is being critical behind closed doors or if he's being singing that same tune that he's singing publicly. I don't really know. I'm definitely more okay with Kyle or John being a little more public of their criticism, whether it be of Moody or anyone else. I feel like that's more appropriate. But the owner talking about the GM and head coach, I don't think I would like that if they said we'll have to think about it or we'll have to evaluate it. That would make me, as a fan, I would be like, oh my god, like what are we doing? Like I don't know. It would make me worry for sure.
I understand that.
So yeah, I was gonna say I kind of disagree. No disrespect, Ryan, but I much prefer the continuity and the projection of calm. I don't think Kyle or John need a red hot poker. Like I feel like they are both known competitive guys. I don't think that they're not succeeding this year because of lack of preparation on the part of Kyle or John. But I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right. I just feel like I have confidence and faith in those guys that they are doing everything that they can and they are all in and motivated. And I also kind of like that they've got their players' backs. I mean, I feel like that's part of the culture that they're trying to build. They seem like a player friendly organization, and
Mhm.
maybe there are times that you don't like that. I know we've talked about like, a little more accountability for certain guys. Okay, that's gonna. I'm not saying like their way is the best way and it's the only way. But if this is their way, which it seems pretty clear to me, years and years of evidence suggests this is their way, then they should continue to be consistent because that is what players are going to appreciate, and you want to be genuine in your interaction with that. So if you're going to say you come here and you work hard for us, we're going to have your back, then you need to follow through on that. And I'm sure that Moody is working hard, and this has been incredibly frustrating for him. I don't care if he's gone next year because, like you played the Bye Felicia clip earlier. That's kind of how I feel about him. But I am glad that we have a coach and leadership in place that has the courage to still stand up there and say, that's my guy. I think he's doing what he needs to do. I have confidence in him because I feel like it's a lot easier to go with the way the wind's blowing and be like, yeah, he's just not getting it done. I don't know, because you don't have a replacement for him yet. So why destroy that young man's confidence? It's probably already destroyed. Like, you don't need to pile on. So, why go out of your way to do that when you don't have to? Yeah, sure, it might make some fans happy because they're pissed off and they want Moody's head right now, and they're like, like
They want
so
Debo to do what he did again.
right. So you can go play to the fans and you can say that stuff, and that might win you a couple brownie points with the fan base here and there. But ultimately, that's not going to help you build a winning culture, because it's like, oh shoot, that coach doesn't really have my back. I go there and he's going to throw me under the bus the first opportunity he gets. Like, I think, isn't Mike Tomlin known for being like a guy that's got his players' backs? Now, I'm sure privately he's ripping into him, and I got to think Kyle is too, and we just don't see it. But maybe he's not. I don't know. I think he is. I think behind closed doors, he's pretty open and honest, because I've heard from players throughout the years that he will let you know. And I also
Hmm.
think that the actions back it up. So you were talking about Cowing earlier and how we'd like to see him get more opportunities, but hey, he commits a dumb penalty, or maybe he's, running the route wrong or in the wrong spot. I think that shows you're not on the field for a reason. Campbell, they said the things to try to, hey, we need Campbell, so we got to stroke the ego. Oh, I think he's doing fine. He's doing fine. But then as soon as you have a better option, he's on the bench, and he wasn't even going to come in until D Winters couldn't go. So that shows you, like, the actions are there. Like, we're going to put who we think are the best guys out there that help us succeed. I know they've said for years, like, they would trade themselves if they got a good enough offer, right? So I feel like it just goes along with who they've been, and I like the consistency. I want it to be there, and I don't want Jed York stirring up the media or a frenzy by saying, "Oh, we're gonna have to look at this." Like, look at what, four NFC title and 2 Super Bowl appearances in the last 6 years. Like, other than the Chiefs, what organization are you trading places with of the last 6 seasons? Maybe the Bucks or the Rams because they won a title, but are you really gonna sell all that success for just one title? Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't know that I would, to be honest with you. Like, I'd really have to think about what the Buccaneers last 5 years have looked like and what the Rams last 5 years have looked like, plus thinking about where they're headed. Like, maybe you can make an argument for the Rams because they seem like they've already kind of rebuilt on the fly and they're on the uptick. But Stafford ain't going to last forever. I kind of feel like I'd rather be where we're at with Brock. Like, anyways, I know I'm rambling now, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like I appreciate who they are, what they do, how they're conducting their business. And I want my owner to say, yeah, these guys have my vote of confidence, and stay out of it. Don't be meddling. Don't be Vivek in what he's doing to the
I was
damn
gonna
Kings.
say that. I was gonna say that. Ryan, are you familiar with what happened to Coach Mike Brown of the Sacramento Kings? He got fired recently.
No,
He publicly ridiculed De'Aaron Fox
the
after
coach or the owner?
The
the
coach.
coach did. The coach did. The coach in his post-game press conference, he started off by just ridiculing how the team handled like game management towards the end. Then he started saying Fox's name and Fox needs to do this, Fox needs to do that. He got fired either the next day or 2 days later after publicly ridiculing their superstar player.
Because he was trying to instill accountability. That was his intention. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yes,
Ouch.
he was gone.
Clearly that backfired. So I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. Like, especially when it comes to Jed York, I don't want him publicly saying anything, frankly, positive or negative. Just don't ever talk to media ever.
Yeah,
But I do still kind of want him applying pressure behind the scenes, whatever that looks like.
Sure.
I don't know, but he just can't. Like, if the Niners do this again next year, they win like 7 games. Is he going to be like, well, Kyle and John are my guy, or
I'm sure it depends on the circumstances. If everything goes the way that they expect and they're choking away leads, then it's like, all right, like you can't even blame injuries anymore. Like that's you now, Kyle. Wear it. Like you kind of already
Well,
have that label.
what if the team does have a bunch of injuries next year? Is you
Mm.
starting to wonder like why are we so unlucky? Like, is there something we're doing in preparation in the off season?
Sure.
Is it the practices during the week? Is it the guys we're drafting? Like, why are we always the team with the injury excuse?
Yeah.
That's a good question and
That's
a rabbit hole to I don't even know.
and
It's a tough
it's a fair question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. I just hope there's some serious self scouting going on from the top to the bottom this season or
Self
this off season.
scout thyself.
Speaking of that, what did you think, Ryan? I was wanting to know your thoughts on your buddy Grant Cohn and what he asked Kyle. And I know there's been kind of like some a few other things I saw this week that Grant has said that people are like keeping receipts and coming back for him.
Yeah, it's funny that happens to Grant a lot. Um, well, because Grant will like he'll watch a quarterback throw a great ball and he'll be like, "Great pass," and then the next play, the quarterback will throw in the dirt and he'll be like, "That guy sucks." Like he just kind of lives and dies by every play. I feel like or every game, and his opinion will kind of change as you get more information, which it should. But he also does it in a way that he kind of knows he's trying to get some fan reaction on social media. I've been wanting someone to ask Kyle like directly, like Grant did, like you guys have underperformed this season. You were Super Bowl favorites coming into the year, and you're missing the playoffs. And there's a whole host of reasons as to why that happened. Well, what part in that did you play? Like, how? What was your role in that? Are you frustrated? And that was his question. Are you frustrated with your performance? So I think it was a good question. I think it was a question that needed to be asked, and I sometimes I wish Kyle would not. I feel like he thinks he's answering Grant's question, and so he does it like he kind of sneers or he laughs and kind of tries to play it off. But like Kyle, what I wish he would realize sometimes is you're not answering to the media, you're answering to the fans.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
not addressing Grant Cohn, you're addressing the Niner Family Huddle podcast and the millions of fans around the world. Like so, don't be have your answers be condescending because you don't like Grant or you don't like Grant's question or whoever's question. Try to answer it with some humility and professionalism and yeah, I don't know, just don't I don't like the condescending nature to some of his answers sometimes, and so I thought it was a good question, but yeah, Grant, a lot of Grant's questions get people either they're like, great question, someone finally asked him, or they're like, someone take this guy's press pass, get him out of the building.
I feel like Kyle's answer the first time Grant asked it
It was good.
was a good answer, and he wasn't like
Yeah.
doing what you said, like being condescending. Because I think he said, like, "Of course, I'm disappointed, and we're always trying to get better." And we're always, so it felt to me, and you know how I feel about Grant Cohn, which is not favorable. It felt to me like the follow up or the second go round. It felt gratuitous and unnecessary to be like, are you
I'm trying to remember what the first question was exactly because the second question was more like, are you frustrated with your individual
Yes.
performance?
right?
And that was the one that Kyle was like, he got a little snippy at. The first one,
It was
I'm trying to remember. Oh, he said, are you going to self scout yourself this off season? Which to me is a dumb question because obviously he is. The question should have been, what is your self scouting process like? And Kyle even kind of made a joke. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that this year.
yeah. I think, well, because I think that this is what it felt like to me wearing my anti-Grant hat that I have. So admittedly out like it felt to me like he asked a question that he was hoping or expecting to have it be like a gotcha question for Kyle. And Kyle answered it in a way where he was like, "Yeah, I'm disappointed and yeah, we're always looking to get better," and like gave a good answer, and it felt to me like almost he was disappointed that Kyle gave a good answer. So he's like, all right, let
Hmm.
me probe a little deeper and be like, well, are you gonna assess yourself. Like, are you disappointed with your own individual? And it just, to me, it felt like it was piling on in a way that you didn't need to. Like, he already kind of answered the question and said, like, I'm disappointed and we're gonna look to get better. And it's like, so now you're just like trying to throw another bomb. And so he's like, I don't know how to answer your question. Like, I thought,
Yeah.
I thought that was fair for him to say that. Cause I mean, honestly, I think Kyle keeps his composure pretty well with like Grant,
Everyone except Grant from time to
with
time.
Grant's BS, in my opinion. And it was funny. I saw somebody make a comment that said, I wonder if Kyle secretly loves Grant. Cause like he, will bring this stuff up and like give him kind of like this, ammunition or whatever to go with. But I don't think he's
Grant's
secretly,
talked about that on his shows before. Like
yeah,
Kyle's said things to him before that he kind of thinks that it's kind of a love hate, a playful kind of love hate thing. Like he probably annoys the hell out of Kyle,
yeah.
but he also does ask questions that Kyle has said like, yeah, good question.
I think
Um,
though, like the stuff that I was talking about with the receipts, like didn't he put out a tweet that said like if Jim Harbaugh or Dan Campbell were coaching the Niners this season, they would have made the playoffs. And it was like, oh, this Dan Campbell, where there's like multiple tweets of him criticizing Dan Campbell, or this Jim Harbaugh where
yeah,
he like wrote a previous story about how he didn't like Jim Harbaugh and his approach and how Harbaugh was arrogant or whatever. And so anyways, but my favorite thing that I saw, and then I'll let either one of you say what you want to say. But my favorite thing was, oh, I love how a guy with a famous father that hasn't really done anything is out there trying to criticize a guy with a famous father that has actually done a lot. And I was like, yeah, suck on that, Grant. But anyways,
I
um,
don't even know who Grant's famous father is. Who is it?
Lowell,
Lowell
Lowell
Cone, who
Cone,
covered the Niners from the 70s up until 2016. He retired right before Kyle Shanahan took over, and he's actually won a bunch of he is the Mike Shanahan to Grant Cohn. Like he won awards. He's covered baseball, covered the Niners championship teams. He was one of the most respected journalists in sports.
it,
Hmm.
And then Kyle,
at least regionally, at least in
yeah,
California, and maybe even on a national scale. But yeah, I know he was a very well respected journalist.
and that was been back when like newspapers were a big deal, and he was writing for the San Francisco Chronicle and doing stuff like that. And then it's funny, it's like Grant is kind of a smaller scale, but he gets a lot of crap, but he also has a ton of fans and supporters. And then Kyle is like hasn't won the Super Bowl, but he's had success, but he has a lot of doubters and haters. So there's kind of a weird little nepotism parallel there that's interesting.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
don't really
well,
have much to add. I was just going to read the quote. The second part of it was Cohen asked Shanahan if he was specifically frustrated with his individual performance. Kyle looked away and scoffed and then said, I don't understand how to answer that question. I work as hard as I can on my individual performance. I'm frustrated with our season. I'm responsible for everything. So I think you can figure that out.
I like that he said I'm responsible for everything because that is kind of taking some accountability. That was the other thing I was going to say is I don't like, and Grant does this from time to time, but a lot of reporters do this just in general. I've seen it when people are talking to UFC fighters or NFL players, whatever. They ask a specific question a specific way, trying to get them to answer it in a certain way rather than just answering an open ended question and letting the interviewee take that question wherever they want to. And the example I always use is like if I said, hey, Steven, what's your favorite food? Mine's pizza. Well, now you're thinking about pizza, and in order to relate to it, you might just say, yeah, I like pizza too, rather than just me saying, Steven, what's your favorite food?
my wife's chocolate chip cookies. But
And yeah,
yeah.
that would probably be in the top five for me too. So yeah, like, and that's kind of what I feel like what Grant was doing in that moment was like, are you disappointed with your performance, and not just saying like, how would you assess your performance this season?
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
Ask a more open-ended question, let them take it where they want to.
It felt like he was poking, and he knew it, and that's what it felt like to me. But I come into it with a bias where I think that that's what Grant is always trying to do. He's just trying to get a reaction out of people. I mean, I you've heard what I've said about him before. I know that he will put out some good stuff, and it's interesting that he will cover angles that other people don't. But on the whole, I feel like he's just trying to get a reaction all the time, and I just don't appreciate his style. That's my thing.
Fair enough.
I do want to say I have to head out to dinner pretty soon with the parents, so I don't know if there's any final topics we wanted to cover off on, or if we were good to
No,
wrap it up.
this went way longer than I was expecting, honestly.
Niners 31, Cardinals 23.
Sure, score predictions.
I'm gonna go Niners. I'm gonna go Niners 32, Cardinals 13. We beat the crap out of them.
Oh my gosh!
Wow, I thought you were rooting for the Jake Moody field goal fest and wanted the Niners to lose. You're gonna say they beat the crap out of them. All right.
I am, but we're prideful, and Josh Dobbs is that guy.
I'll go. I'll do it. I'll go Cardinals 20, Niners 16.
Whoa, boring game.
Sounds like some field goals.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see Juwan get his yards and stuff, but like bad offensive line, backup quarterback. You know, I don't know.
Dobbs is gonna cook in the red zone. That mobile quarterback, he's gonna cook up.
He might.
But he'll probably also throw a couple picks, right? Like, isn't that kind of his thing? Like
He might.
Yeah.
He might.
Honestly, I'd be shocked if the Niners scored over 20.
Okay.
All right. I
We'll see.
actually am, like, no joke. I actually am really excited for this game, even though it means nothing, because I really want to watch the young guys, and I've been waiting to see Dobbs play. And so I'm excited to see Dobbs play and the young guys and see who can go over 1,000. Like, I'm more excited than I thought I would be for a game that means nothing against a mediocre team in the Cardinals. I'm pretty excited to watch it.
If I'm being totally honest, I feel like the main thing I'm excited about is just appreciating that I get to watch the Niners play a real football game for the last time in like several months. So it's like, I'm not all that excited or motivated by the game. I'm trying to find the individual storylines. Like I said, Kittle get some touchdowns, JJ get his 1,000, Pierce will have a good game. So like, honestly, it feels almost like a glorified preseason game to me.
Dang, son.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just being honest.
Yeah, last Niner game for like 7 months. That is kind of sad.
Yeah, that's the main motivation to me is like, let's appreciate it, because honestly, there might be some guys that are gone after this. I mean, Debo would be the main one where it's like, to appreciate him, and he's not going to play. So that,
And he's out.
Yeah,
we might have seen Debo's final game as a Niner.
that could be. But yeah,
And he got a touchdown, right?
it could be Juice's last game, right? Like we don't know. There could be other guys that we like. Mooney is even going to play. He was out personal last time, right? So
I don't think he is. I don't think Mooney's playing.
yeah. So anyways,
We'll find out Sunday.
yeah, Hufanga, maybe it's his last game as a Niner. We don't know. Anyways, so try to appreciate that stuff is what I'm saying.
True. All right. We'll reconvene after the game.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Bye, guys.
See ya.